Josh, it is just terrific seeing you again.
It's so nice to see you, Bill.
So, to introduce ourselves, why don't we do that in one sentence, but make it interesting and share something that I don't know about you, and I'll try to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Josh Kaplan. I am a rising junior at Emory University, and I'm one of the Ashoka Young Changemakers. One thing that most people don't know is last summer I studied abroad in Brazil, and I decided to go hang gliding without telling my parents with an instructor who spoke no English. So here I am today, still alive, but it was a lot of fun.
That's terrifying.
It was.
Well, I'm Bill Drayton with Ashoka. I've always been a social entrepreneur since elementary school, and I love backpacking. And I will admit that if I'm a little distracted today, that's because a 3-week backpacking trip is coming up.
Where are you going to be going?
Well, now that's a sad story. 5 years ago, I would have been able to tell you. But now I have got 4 trips planned. And it turns out, are there going to be fires or some other environmental disaster?
Sure.
And it's necessary now. So anyone who tells you climate change is not here does not understand.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like it will be a wonderful trip, and I'm excited to get started with all the questions that we have. So, Bill, tell me, how do the 4 drivers support our work with jujitsu partners?
Well, we probably better explain what a jujitsu partner
That would be
is
great.
First. One of our central goals, as you know, because you're in the center of it, is getting everyone, meaning everyone, to understand that there is a completely different standard measure of what success in growing up is. The key measure is what proportion of young people know that they're a change maker, and you can't know if you haven't learned. So how do we get everyone to understand that? What are the 4 really powerful forces to get this change across to everyone? Publishers, at schools, education unions, very important, and a state, a city. Now, in each of those, we have to find partners who are really big game players, and when they get into it, then we can change the whole conversation. For them to get into it, the 4 drivers are critical.
Right.
So let's take the education units. Well, they've got thousands of locals, and what actually happens on the ground is that the local has to deal with the school board and with the community organizations. One of the key 4 drivers is you've got to help those organizations understand what this is. So you can help the adults there, new game, my daughter really has to have this set of abilities, and here's what I do. So that's your kids. Your kids doesn't work unless you or one of the other Ashoka Young Changemakers is there. And then once those people, the members of the school board, for example, have that experience, they can sign up for the Lead Young Stories. That's another. And then every month, their kids, the Girl Scout group that their daughter is a part of, can get a story that helps the conversation. So the 4 drivers are how everyone, the jujitsu partners, everyone else, operationalizes. So I get to pull one of these things out now. How do you describe the Everyone a Changemaker movement to your peers' parents?
That's a great question, and what I love most about the Everyone a Changemaker movement is that it's accommodating and inclusive of everyone, regardless of your experience with volunteering, regardless of your interests and your passions. The Everyone a Changemaker movement is this grassroots campaign, if you will, to encourage and ultimately mobilize young people to follow up on their passions. We always say, be the change that you wish to see in the world. And as trite a quote as it is sometimes, that's what the Everyone a Changemaker movement does, is it encourages young people to find the issue and the problem that they've identified in their own communities and ultimately develop innovative and meaningful solutions that engage everyone who's in that community. So it's not just saying, I see someone experiencing homelessness on the street, I will buy them a meal. But rather, the Everyone a Changemaker movement provides resources for and encourages young people to say, how can I address this problem on a much broader scale? Not just that one person, but rather, what does this problem look like in my community, in communities across the country, and ultimately across the world? All right, let's see. Oh, there we go. Can there be more than 4 drivers? What other tools is Ashoka building for framework change? Do you want to start by just describing what framework change is, in Ashoka's opinion, just very briefly?
Well, we were just talking about it. The idea that everyone has to be able to be a change maker. The game is now changed.
Right.
You can't get up in the morning and think that you're going to be playing basketball. You may be very good at that, but the game is now chess. And if you don't see that and you don't develop chess skills, you're out.
Right.
Well, that is a framework change. You have to understand this is how the world is organized. It's now chess. It's an everything changing, and therefore everyone has to be a change maker, new reality.
Right.
And our job is to help everyone see that, because the moment you see it, then you know what to do. The 4 drivers are really for everything, but there are other tools. So, for example, it's very important to hire for change-making abilities. If you want so we can work with the top executives on the next 2 or 3 really important hires. Well, not only are they going to get the next 2 or 3 people to be change makers, but they're learning. And suddenly you have the top 4 or 5 people are change makers. Now, this is really simple. We're very good at being able to spot an adult and find change makers. Well, there's a whole set of tools, but the first and most important thing you've got to do, as you suggested, is help people see the new framework. This is the new game. You got to be in this game. Okay. Why did you apply to be an Ashoka Young Changemaker? Because you're very smart. It was a good choice.
I think that's one of them. But I remember in my high school, so I applied to be an Ashoka Young Changemaker right before I started college. And I remember in my high school being the only person who was attuned to social issues, who had identified these community problems, but taken that first leap to actually create a difference. I was the only one in my school, really, who was running a program. I started a soccer program for kids with intellectual disabilities my sophomore year in high school. But I found that change-making was frowned upon because it bucked the norm of what your traditional educational experience should look like. A lot of my classmates went to school early every morning, stayed until 3 or 4, would maybe participate in 1 or 2 activities outside of class, but there was no expectation beyond going to school. And I think exactly what you're saying, that the classroom is this powerful space to teach and engage young people in issues that our world is experiencing, but I didn't find that in high school. And so I was looking for that forum to meet other young people who were also experiencing that same culture in their own schools, but also find a place to be inspired by other young people. And the Ashoka Young Changemakers that I've met through this program have absolutely transformed the way that I see the world, the way that I think about social issues, and the way that I see the power of young people as changing the world. So with that, I'll dive into the next question. I cannot get this out. Okay. So we already talked about the 4 drivers, which is awesome. So why do you think the 4 drivers are key for our partners to understand the Everyone a Changemaker movement?
The main reason the 4 drivers are critical is that it gives you the tool to actually act. If the education union wants to change their relationship with the school board, at the moment it is, you can't have your new building because we want our salaries. So it's a zero-sum game. But now, you got to work with the school board, because if we don't work together, how are we going to change how kids are brought up
Right.
in this community? So here's a very simple thing you can do. The union can say to the 15 members of the school board, give us an hour and a half and we'll bring the Your Kids program, and you'll have a very clear idea. New game, critical for your sons and daughters, and here are things you can do at home right away. Suddenly, it's no longer a zero-sum relationship. The union is helping the parents who happen to be on the school board do the most important thing in their life. And this is really important for the union, but it's really important now they're working together, and it's much more likely they'll work together. The same thing, you can use the same tools with the parents, with the business community, the religious communities. Well, it's not just someone going and saying, here's a tool that you can use, and then it's backed up by the Lead Young stories. The school board members can bring those stories to their family and discuss it every month.
Yeah.
So it's how do you actually operationalize? They're very simple, very, very low cost, high impact, that are right on helping people see the new framework and act on it. All right. What are your biggest takeaways from being an Ashoka Young Changemaker?
I think one of my biggest takeaways is exactly what you're saying, that young people are integral to this movement that we're talking about. And oftentimes young people are left out of a lot of conversations involving the future of our world, on which young people have the information, have the expertise, and ultimately have the power. But so often we're ignored because we face these structural barriers of operating in a world that is led by adults who, for the most part, don't want to listen to young people. I can't even tell you how many times I heard when I was starting the organization I run that, why are you trying to do this? Are you even old enough to be doing this? Shouldn't you be doing your homework instead? To which I said, I am, but also this is my homework. And I got a lot of questions of, are you skilled enough to be running a program like this? And so I said, absolutely, because young people see the issues from a fresh perspective. And that's what the Ashoka Young Changemakers has showed me, is that there are organizations like Ashoka out there who are not only prioritizing youth engagement, but actually operationalizing it and finding ways to insert young people into every single conversation about our world issues, from climate change and hunger to even issues close to my own heart, like involving people with special needs in the athletics community. And I love that Ashoka is taking those steps to listen to the problems that young people have identified and give them the resources and opportunities to change them. So with that, let's move on to the next question. So can you describe how the 4 drivers interact and reinforce one another?
Sure. So we've talked a little bit about how you help any group of adults become a change maker. The most powerful way of doing that, what do they care about most? It's their kids. And the moment they understand that my daughter cannot succeed in life unless she masters a whole bunch of abilities that are not coming through the school system.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're on it. Well, they met an Ashoka Young Changemaker in that Your Kid session. It doesn't work if you or one of your peers is not there.
Right.
At the end of it, we offer access to the library of lead young stories about a young person who has a dream, built a team, is changing or has changed the world. And also some stories of great entrepreneurs of today and how they got started when they were 12 or 15.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one is how do we work together as a community and share our understandings of how to do this with any young person who wants to be powerful.
Right.
So all those fit together, but the Ashoka Young Changemakers are necessary for all of them.
Yeah, I think that's what this whole conversation has been about, really, is how to meaningfully include young people at every step of the decision-making process. And so I love feeling valued in an organization like Ashoka, where I know that if I speak out, my opinions will be not only heard, but actually taken into consideration.
Well, your and your colleagues' co-leadership of this movement is absolutely essential. You can't have a revolution unless the people who are going to have to change most are at the center of it.
Thank you so much for inviting me here to talk about each and the Ashoka Young Changemakers program. It's been so much fun getting to sit down with you. I'm excited to hear about your backpacking trip.
Well, one thing we've got to say is thank you for a very big role. It's not a small role, a really big role. And not surprisingly, you have your power and you're making a really big leadership contribution in the overall movement, which is completely critical.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have everyone a change maker, we have the divided world. The people who are in the game and the people out of it. The people out of it are depressed and angry, and income distributions are getting worse, and we have the divided politics that has spread so rapidly just in the last 5 years. So you're very key in breaking away from that division to a much better place. Thank you.
Of course.